I want to talk about a really interesting response to a really troubling trend in Canada. We've seen, and in particular since October 7th of last year, really disturbing rise in anti-Semitism across Canada. Anti-Semitism that has spilled over onto the streets in terms of hatred, even violence and intimidation, targeting individual Jewish Canadians, Jewish communities, Jewish-owned businesses. And so I think it's important then that the Jewish Canadians understand that they're not alone, that they have allies, that the Canadians are standing with them and standing by them. And that's where this new organization comes in. It's called Allies for a Strong Canada, launched today. More at theallies.ca. Joining us to talk more about all of this, very pleased to welcome in the program here this afternoon, Michael Westcott, Executive Director of Allies for a Strong Canada. Michael, so great to have you with us here. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate having me on.
I mean, unfortunate that something like this is needed, but nonetheless, I think an important and positive step. Tell us a bit more about how this all came about.
Well, for me, it started with one of my best friends who, with the rising levels of anti-Semitism in Canada, felt so unsafe that he felt he needed to move him and his family away. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart that in a country that puts values like freedom from violence and protection from safety so high on our list of values that people feel that they would need to leave to protect themselves and protect their families. And so while I'm not Jewish, I have had the privilege of working with many friends in the Jewish community for many years on all kinds of different issues. And I said, enough is enough. We need a clear, consistent voice across the country from allies of the Jewish community to stand up and say, we stand with you and you are not alone. And we need to make it clear that this rising tide of anti-Semitism that we are seeing in Canada is not acceptable. It is not consistent with our values, and we need to do something about it.
Yeah, and clearly something needs to be done. It's interesting to see, this kind of a group where, it's about standing shoulder to shoulder with the Jewish community, to see some of the folks involved. I mean, retired General Rick Hillier is involved in this. So interesting to see some of the community leaders coming together here.
Yeah, it's been really heartening, the support that we have received, both inside the Jewish community, but more importantly from allies outside the Jewish community. General Hillier has been an incredibly outspoken force fighting anti-Semitism, both on social media and in op-eds and in media appearances and speaking engagements, pretty much since we saw this latest wave of anti-Semitism start to take hold after October 7th. And his voice has really been a rallying call for many others as well. And in the days and weeks ahead, you're going to hear from an awful lot of Canadians who agree that what's happening right now is absolutely unacceptable, and that we need to stand up and say clearly that this is not who we are as a country, and this is not acceptable.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Canadians feel that way, maybe just not knowing what they can do or what kind of action they can take. So where can groups like this play a role? Like what kind of action do you envision being taken here?
Well, I think the first thing that we need people to do is know that they're not alone, and they need to be able to speak out, whether it's in their local communities or with their representatives or on social media. And so we're putting together a list of tools that people can use to help communicate about this issue. Our goal here is to help people mobilize on this, whether it's within their own social groups or with their elected representatives or others. So anybody who wants to learn more about this, just head on over to theallies.ca and sign up. And you'll see in the days ahead at just how people can get involved.
Yeah, and I mean, strength in numbers, and I think something like this sends a really powerful message. As I alluded to at the outset, though, Michael, the fact that something like this is necessary in the first place, I mean, it's kind of a sad commentary on where things are at, and I don't know if it's just all of this has bubbled to the surface, but maybe it's been there for a long time, and we've just seen this manifest itself over the last almost a year now, I guess. But, I mean, Your thoughts on just how we got to this point that something like this is necessary?
I think that over the last year, as Canada has struggled with this rising wave of anti-Semitism and hate, I think to some it has felt like maybe there's been permission because more has not been done to stand up to this. Whether it has been, we have seen vandalism, we have seen arsons, we have seen protests that have turned violent. We have seen physical assaults and intimidation. I mean, this is happening in all kinds of places. This is happening in, as you said, Jewish-owned businesses. I mean, earlier this year we had a community center in Montreal that was encircled by a protest, and it took a court order for the police to come in and disband it. Yeah. So I think as this stuff happens, I mean, we've had 2 schools, one in Montreal and one in Toronto, that have been shot at. And I think as this happens, if there isn't a clear and consistent message that this is not okay in our country, we're going to continue to see acts like this get perpetrated.
Well, folks want to find out more, get involved. Again, the website is theallies.ca. Allies for a Strong Canada launched today. Michael, look forward to seeing more from this group, but appreciate you making some time for us here this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Rob. Have a great day.